How is everybody? All right? Yeah, good. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the findings of the Northwest Net Zero report from the youth report from our two very obviously much more youthful people over there, because not you, Steve. You're almost as old as me, but not quite. But first, Andy's going to introduce the whole session. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andy Burnham. Yeah.
Is that? Oh, it's on, isn't it? It is on. Thank you so much, John. Morning, everybody. I think I'm amazed. I've never seen so many people out of bed at 9 o'clock in Manchester on a Saturday morning. This is a first for sure. So just going to give you the official welcome to Manchester. We're really pleased to see the sustainability show taking place here. A particularly special welcome to the Mayor of the Liverpool City region, to the home of the treble winners. But today is not about the divisions of football. It's about Northwest United today, isn't it? It's about what can we do as a region to kind of lead the way and possibly become a net exporter of green energy to the rest of the UK, the rest of the world. How can we kind of go on this journey and use it to re-industrialise the northwest of England in a good way and bring all of the benefits that will come from that in terms of jobs and people's lives. We're ready to do it. And that was what we both decided, wasn't it, Steve? At COP26, we kind of said that kind of the pace isn't quick enough. We are ready to go, actually. And what we want is to get that sort of, get the backing of everybody for what we're trying to do. And the more we do it together, the more the Northwest, I think, will succeed. We also felt, both of us, that the voice of the next generation was not being heard loud enough in this debate. So at COP26, we decided to set up a Northwest Youth Network to bring their perspective to what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. And we're really grateful, actually, to you both for leading that work. I think there was a big event in October last year, wasn't there, where to you all, sorry. Fantastic to hear your report back today and your challenge to us, and we're ready to hear that challenge and respond to it. But obviously, we also need the sort of projects, the detail behind what we need to do if we're going to make the Northwest a net exporter of green energy. Let me be really clear about that. That is our ambition. Steve's got an incredible vision for a tidal project on the Mersey. We here in Greater Manchester are really looking at green hydrogen and all of the benefits that can bring. But we need to turn it into reality. And it's why Dale kindly stepped forward and agreed to lead a task force for us to kind of look at how you turn these ambitions into reality. And we're going to hear the report back from his work as well. It's not like we're not doing anything, though. Since COP26, the pace of decarbonisation on our public transport systems in the Liverpool City region and Greater Manchester has really picked up. I don't know how many, Steve will tell you at some point today, you've bought a lot of hydrogen buses. I was looking at your battery trains that you're introducing in the next couple of weeks, which is another big step forward. I think it's the first in the country, isn't it? We have got a major change to public transport about to land called the B Network. It starts in September. We've got a huge number of electric buses on order. We're cutting the cost of public transport in Greater Manchester, going towards that London model. So there's a lot happening. We've done a huge mapping exercise of our energy systems, so we kind of know what we need to do to get to our goal of a net zero grid. We know the level of investment that we need, and also in terms of our buildings, we're having a big drive on housing and housing standards. Following the signing of a devolution deal with the government earlier this year, the Trailblazer deal, we want to improve homes as we retrofit them and make it a kind of home improvement programme across the city region. So the ideas are there. We're just kind of waiting for maybe a change of government, who knows, to kind of get behind us more properly so that we can pick up the pace. And our vision is obviously to lead for the country, to go faster here towards a net zero future so that we then give the UK more chance of hitting its 2050 target. We're still committed to a net zero city region by 2038. Now that's a science-based target, not just a political target. We've had the work from the University of Manchester to say that that is what we could do. And though the pace isn't still quick enough, it is just about doable if we really kind of change gear at this moment in time. So as a city region, myself and the 10 leaders, we're still we're still committed to it. I think Steve's got a 2040 vision. If you just think about it, if you get the Northwest moving quickly, you can obviously see then the benefits that will bring to the whole of the country. And let's not just see this as something that we've got to do because it's the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do. But actually, this could be the thing that transforms lives in the northwest of England in terms of good transport for people that they can afford to use. Everybody with a good home that supports their health. But more than that, thousands and thousands and thousands of good jobs that will bring prosperity to this city region. So here, you won't find voices challenging net zero. You won't get that kind of, the idea that it's the new front in the culture war. Well, not here. We are absolutely committed to it. We are ready to go, and we're really excited, both of us, about what we're going to hear today from our Young People's Network, but also from Dale and all the work that he's been doing for us. So I'll pause there. You're very, very welcome, all of you, to Greater Manchester this morning. Have a great day, and I'll hand back to John.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Yeah. So, okay, let's hear from the young people then, yeah. So, I've read the report, it's excellent, it's inspiring, and it sort of puts all exactly the pointers that we want to see. So, I'm really looking forward to what you've got to say now, presenting it, yeah.
Don't know if my microphone's on. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting us here today. My name's Hannah, and I'm with Connor, and we're part of the Northwest Net Zero Youth Network. And we're working to give young people a strong voice in climate change policies and decision making.
So we facilitated a conference event last year where we hosted almost 100 young people from across the Northwest. And we had the opportunity to discuss topics regarding net zero. These included, so we confined it to a few topics specifically, including green spaces, green economy rights, green energy and green transport. The event helped us to gain insights into young people's opinions and mindsets and gave us calls to actions on each of the topics. And we're really thankful to have some great topic experts who supported us in the event, so providing some key factual guidance in our workshops on the day.
The aim of the event was to collect and pass on opinions, thoughts and findings from young people to those who have power to create change. This is in the hope that those in the positions to create change will take necessary climate action to reduce our impact on the planet. Climate action has become critically important due to the increasing severity of the climate crisis. We have got to the point where our individual actions to reduce our impact need to be scaled up by our leaders.
We're proud and honoured to have this opportunity to provide a network, forming a voice for young people across the Northwest region. But with this opportunity comes the responsibility to ensure that voices are heard and to avoid and to advise policymakers. And it is vital to ensure that policymakers are held accountable and that in the long term young people are updated and informed about changes that are happening.
As a brief overview from the event we ran with the young people, we found a huge passion for net zero and change for a better climate. These passions were backed by facts, ideas and policy changes, which we hope can be taken away today by everyone to process and maybe lead to commitments to change. The main points and calls for action for takeaway were education, incentivisation and enforcement and regulation.
Young people understand the current financial state is difficult for businesses, especially small ones, so making changes for the climate can be especially difficult. For this, they suggested guidance and financial support and subsidies in different formats, including relief and grants in return for businesses going greener. This is a great way to direct large portions of the region in sweeping style actions from local governments and councils.
Another key takeaway was young people's interest in providing further education on climate change. This is because education helps to improve the capacity of communities to cope with changes to climate change and can help people to feel empowered to use their voice to create change. But for education to have this effect, we not only need to think about what we're being taught, but how we're being taught. We need an education system where we don't just learn things to pass tests, but a system where we're empowered to make change and given a voice. It's also important to realise that whilst education is highly important, it has to go hand in hand with solid action. Raising awareness and improving the community's capacity can't go all the way in solving climate change. We need solid action from those in power.
The final takeaway that we got from the day was need for enforcement and regulation in tackling the climate crisis, so people are held accountable and change truly happens. It is important to have a strict stance in strategic areas to ensure the most success in change. And some of these places that young people believe could be targeted include plastics, meats, carbon production, environmental checks against business operations.
Green spaces are also especially important when discussing the topic of regulation and enforcement. Green spaces such as urban parks and wild peat bogs are continuously not protected. In the UK, 97% of our peat bogs have been destroyed, although they are the largest carbon sequestrators. Without regulations to protect these vitally important ecosystems, the climate crisis will worsen.
Thank you again for this opportunity for us to speak today to you all. We are glad to have this chance to stress the importance, like many will today, of net zero and the effects of climate change. For this, we hope more opportunities like the Northwest Net Zero Group continue, so not only to allow voices and opinions for young people, but to provide feedback and updates on changes and pledges such as the ones that could be made today. Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we get the leader's response to that, I mean, Hannah, Connor, are you optimistic about this? Do you think? I mean, it's a really well written report. It's got all the brilliant pointers. It's like a manifesto of what the future should be. But what do you feel? Do you feel this could actually happen, or is it just you're just hoping for the best?
A bit of both. I think.
I certainly think from Andy's speech that you made before that the local areas are definitely really keen to see change. Obviously people are, but also councils are starting to get involved now as well, and they really want to see this change. And we've had a great opportunity already this morning to speak to both mayors present, and the commitments that they're already talking about and the interest that they clearly have is really great to see. So I think the best takeaway today is just be promising and something's going to change.
I mean, and your role, will it continue? Or is it just doing the report, or have you got a continued role in the process in the next few years?
Yeah, I think then the network's going to carry on to next year. So, I don't know, maybe more conferences and more reports.
We'll give you some more work to do.
So, leaders' response then, Andy?
Well, I think it was fantastic what we just heard, and it's everything that Steve and I wanted when we asked you to do this, just to kind of bring a kind of different kind of voice. You know, we hear some of the negativity sometimes from the older generation around this agenda. You've just brought a load of positivity, and I think it's this thing, isn't it, about how do we align the drive towards decarbonisation with improving life for people and improving life chances and making society fairer. So you touch very clearly on regulation, and I think that's a point that needs to be picked out. I've kind of learnt this, John, from taking the decision to put buses under public control. So I'm the first mayor outside of London to do it. I think Steve will be the second. It's a bit of a game changer when you can regulate the system, because then you can dictate the pace of change. You can actually stipulate what buses should be on our streets. So I mentioned ordering those electric buses. If you're running a deregulated system, how do you get the pace of change? Because often they will put the cheapest buses on the street, and you don't get that sort of ability to control the system. And we can see that with water as well, can't we, where there's weak regulation. You know, what has it led us to? You know, failure to invest in the infrastructure, sewage being pumped into rivers and seas, and kind of billions being siphoned out in massive dividends. This model is not going to get us there, is it, in terms of the way we manage our essentials, things like electricity, water, transport. I think we do need a very different model, not just more public control, but more public ownership as well. And I think the experience we've had here already with transport and buses shows that, you know, we will only get there if you've got city regions like ours with control of it all, and add trains into that as well. You know, the kind of railway system, well, I don't know what's going on there. You know, they charge sky high train fares and ticket prices, but they don't plan to have any ticket offices open to sell them to you now, apparently. I think it's just unbelievable, you know, how wrong some of the way these industries are, you know, the way that they're being run. That they need radical change, in my view, and it will be for Steve and I to put that case to the next government to say, look, you've got to get on with regulating these services properly, giving more ownership of them to local areas, and that is the only way we will get there. I'll touch very briefly, well, I'm sure Steve will want to come in, on education as well. You kind of made the case there for a very different education system. I have got some ability now to shape post-16 education, and we are bringing forward a plan for a completely different technical education system, an integrated technical education system, and a Greater Manchester Baccalaureate, where we kind of create a real alternative to the university route. It dominates English education. It's good for those who are on it, don't get me wrong, but a lot of young people grow up in the Northwest without clarity for what is there for them, a clear path towards the jobs of the future. And we're trying to create a completely different system for people via a Greater Manchester Baccalaureate to balance the English Baccalaureate. And the reason I'm just touching on that is because the skills requirement of all of this, when you think about retrofitting and you think about green energy, it's absolutely massive, but the education system is not pointing people in that direction at all at the moment, and there's going to be a kind of skills risk to this if we don't wake up to that. So we're proposing a kind of radical change to technical education, and I would be really grateful if the network would really oversee that with us to see how we can properly steer young people towards green jobs.
Thank you.
Steve, is that the kind of same sort of points as in Liverpool as well?
Well, you'll find that a lot of what we say is similar, because we actually both represent areas that are very similar. There might be Mancunians here who don't like that, and back home there might be Scousers who go, I'm not like them. But you know what? We really are. If you take away the tribalism, the same issues exist in both of our great cities and city regions. And we hear politicians all the time talking about they want to listen to the voices of young people, but they're not hearing them, are they? Because if they did, then they would take some concrete actions to respond to a very loud clamour that's coming from young people. And I know people won't believe this, but I'm in my late 40s now, not really. But when I was a kid, we used to just lob everything in the bin. There was no thought of the planet. There was no real understanding of what was happening beyond sort of our little area. Kids now know things that probably I still don't even know now at my ripe old age, and they're the ones who are the educators. Andy talked about education. These are the educators, because these tell the mums and dads and grandmas and granddads that you shouldn't be doing this, and we do need to listen more. So that's why the engagement and the perspective that they've brought is really important to what we're trying to achieve. And so what is that we're trying to achieve? Well, look, we're doing this for the right reasons, because the existential threat of climate emergency, but there's great opportunity there as well, and we need to promote that more, because there are a lot of naysayers out there who think that this is all, sort of pinko lefty nonsense, and it doesn't really exist, and climate deniers, and we need to explain that even if that was true, which is not, but even if that was true, there are great opportunities economically to capitalise on this, and we can do stuff in the Northwest that probably will ensure that we're the leaders in the green industrial revolution. And I always say, we're trains and docks and canals, we're the gateway to the first industrial revolution. Then our advantages here in wind and tidal and hydrogen can make us the leaders and the gateway to the fourth industrial revolution, because it's about innovation. Because a lot of the stuff that we're doing has never been done before. So there's genuine opportunity for us all, and I want to see whether we can use some of the skills issues that Andy's talking about to our advantage. We haven't got a workforce to do some of the jobs that we'll need in the future, but national government with its monolithic structure can never do that for areas like ours. So we need to be doing that for ourselves, and we want to create really good sustainable jobs. And I'm sure we'll go on to the debate about hydrogen, because we're backing something called HyNet, and there are problems with that. but we need to be thinking about what we can do whilst we work towards the proper green energy needs of the future.
I like the way it's a Northwest vision. This is one of the strengths of this. It's not a Liverpool v Manchester thing. But speaking of the Northwest, Matt, I'm just bringing you in here. Cheshire, does it count to Northwest, or are you on the right side of the Mersey for this?
Yeah, apologies, I was 5 minutes late.
Can you get his mic up? Yeah.
Apologies, I was 5 minutes late.
No, it's okay. But you're here now, that's what matters.
Here now, the trains were cancelled, so I...
Trains were, how ironic is that?
I hate driving.
So Matt, you work for Cheshire Council.
So I'm the Climate Emergency Cabinet Member for Cheshire West and Chester Council. Previously housing and planning, homelessness and other such. But I think personal stories are important. Dale doesn't know this, but he actually inadvertently gave us a load of money to set up our first anti-fracking camp, which is why I first got elected. So any flack that he's getting from Just Stop Oil, people power does work. So any young people in the room, I'm not saying don't put yourself in jeopardy, but it does work. You can build tree houses and you can dig tunnels. Just with regards to HyNet, this is probably it's going to be the Europe's largest single project, and what's even more important is the storage of that hydrogen to decarbonise the fourth highest industrial cluster in the UK, which is Stanlow, which runs all the way through to Steve's area, and Cheshire are we are integral in this process, and that's why we need devolution as soon as possible to get Louise Gittins as the mayor alongside the lads, so they can stop flirting together. That's all I've got to say for now.
But does it work as a Northwest thing? You know, you see it's in the future, the Northwest as a regional leader in kind of green industrial revolution in a sense, because I mean, like Steve is saying, this was not the birthplace industrial revolution, but definitely the key driving force area in the original industrial revolution, made the mess in the first place, really.
Yeah,
but in the 21st century way, are we the place where we could do the clean-up? That'd be a brilliant ambition, wouldn't it? And can Cheshire be involved in that as well?
Well, it's going to have to be involved, because it's going to be, we're literally in the middle of it, and we're the ones with the skill sets. I was at COP26 for 2 weeks last year or the year, but 2 years ago now. And I'd just like to say the report I read last night, which has come forward from the youth, is absolutely fantastic. I was in an apartment with the Vice Chancellor from the University of Chester, 6 members of XR. We had 3 members of an organisation I can't mention. It was a hot mess of like mixed people with mixed beliefs, but everybody was reaching for the same goal, and that's where everybody needs to be going on. And at the moment, it's coming down from the top. The Tories are. I don't want to get political. There might be Tories in the room. Don't pick them out.
Not many.
But there's policy being put into place now. As Dale said on Question Time 2 nights ago, was it? Like he pointed it out very eloquently that the Tories are literally ripping up everything that Alloc put into place at COP26, and it was an awful lot of effort and an awful lot of money. I didn't take any expenses for it because I had a tree planting project, but it's an absolute disgrace to anybody that went there and put the effort in, and the sooner we get them out, the better. Right.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of which, I mean, Andy, with the ambitions here, you and Steve, Chris, everyone's got the ambition to make this thing happen, but how much can we actually do it? Is it the frustrations because the national government gets in the way?
Yeah, I think that is the frustration. There's no lack of will, as you can hear. We're really, really clear, Steve and I, that this is about a very big vision for the Northwest in the future. You know, not one of decline and kind of inequality, but this is the route by which we can become, as I say, well, Dale, you'll hear from Dale shortly, we can credibly become a net exporter of green energy, a global cluster of excellence in this space, and that can completely kind of change the fortunes of a region that went into steep decline in the second half of the 20th century, and we're just pulling it out. That's why we left Parliament together. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And I think the point was just made, though, for everyone, whatever people's views politically, we don't get there without more devolution in England. The race to net zero can't be sort of kind of won from the top down. It's got to be a bottom-up process. It won't happen without more devolution. Cheshire, Lancashire, if you think of a Northwest where everyone had the same as Steve and I, or actually better, all of us had even more, then I think you then can actually get the pace into this that is required. And if we're honest, it isn't there yet. So I think I would be saying to both of the political parties, you can't just sort of talk about this devolution and a bit here and a bit there. I think it's got to be much more wholehearted devolution to set places up to really go for it. Because as I say, you've got to join the dots from the bottom up, haven't you? You've got to connect transport to energy systems to housing. It's complicated, and it will definitely not be done with the sort of Whitehall knows best mentality. They don't know best. We're already showing we can do a lot with what we've got, but it's about a much more devolved future. We are the most politically centralised country in the OECD. Westminster hoards all this power, and then there's nothing down to kind of councils that are really underfunded. This thing that Steve and I are building is actually the answer to a lot of what is wrong in the country at the moment. And wherever you are politically, we would both of us, I think, make a plea to you all, get behind the call for kind of deep devolution across all of England, and everywhere, in our view, everywhere should have it. We're not calling for something for us that we don't want for anywhere else. We want everywhere to have it, and then we'll be able to build a very different future together.
Brilliant, yeah. So Rose, I want to bring you in here. What was your reaction to the reporters?
As always, the young people come up with the vision and the ambition, and often aren't given often aren't given the voice to be able to actually implement it. So I thought it was really strong, really eloquently written. A lot of hard work had gone into it, but as we hear from Dale and Amira, it's not just the young people that need to get behind this. They're the ones that are going to inherit a future that either is renewable and green and with lots of potential in it, or a future that's broken and possibly a bit dystopian. So we need everybody to get behind this and get behind what the young people are going to inherit in this region.
Did you find, like me, that the report actually makes you feel slightly more optimistic about the future?
Yeah, always when I spend time with young people, I become more optimistic about the future. But yeah, I think hearing, like I say, from the potential in the Northwest, when we hear from Dale in terms of what we can do, and again Amira in terms of understanding how we can bring people together, yeah, I'm full of optimism because we've got 2 mayors and councillors who want to make this happen. So we've got the people in power. I believe, look at the room on a Saturday morning. We've got the people. We've got private businesses as well, which we'll go on to talk about how you can bring all of these together. So yeah, I'm really optimistic, but it's going to be really hard work, and we've got to keep our foot on the pedal.
So Amira, you've been you're nodding your head vigorously. Yeah, I just couldn't see. But you've been involved in this field for a long time as well. So what does the report mean to you?
So I've been at COP25, COP26, COP27, and heading off to COP28. And because I've always worked on inclusion, I always get, connected with the young people in the space. And often they just kind of get wheeled in, say a few things, wheel them out, and then their voices are not taken seriously. So this is one of the first examples I've genuinely seen in my career where there's genuine interest and listening and attention to what they want. But I agree a lot with Rose, like we can't put the responsibility on young people to fix the problems that we've caused and our past has caused, but what we can do is kind of shape the future together, bring them in fairly, but not kind of throw all the responsibility on them, because we want them to have the opportunities that we had, right? So yeah, that's what I'd say. Thanks.
Brilliant. So Dale, part of this, not the report from Hannah and Connor, but part